Tell us everything. Tell us about well, first of all, before we talk about your sponsorship property, you have a fascinating business model, and we've been working together for I don't know how long, a couple of years.
Yeah.
And you've seen a ton of growth and a ton of success. So yeah, so give us a background of your business model, and then I'd love to hear about your. It's hard to say sponsorship property because you have what 300 sponsorship properties.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's over 700.
Geez, I thought I was being ridiculous when I said 300. Over 700 is preposterous.
Yeah. Well, I mean, really, fundamentally, we do community events at scale. So,
Yes.
we'll work with, over 250,000 finishers, or participants, attendees across our events
Yeah.
throughout the year. And, we have a model that, we don't do the New York City Marathon or the London Marathon or anything like that. And we do have events that have, over 5,000 attendees. We have several, but we do the any given Sunday races, the local turkey trots. Those are sort of like our niche.
Nice.
And these are just unique events. So we have a logistics model providing, the free event setup and the online registration software and the event day logistics and the post-event recap and the marketing and the different assets they need. And sponsorship, of course, is a big part of these events, but most of it's done through that bucket of local philanthropic giving, right? So the local dealership sponsors a local 5K because they want to say, hey, we recognize.
Yeah, they want to be in the community. Yeah, totally.
But a big missing hole is, these larger sponsors, both on the regional and the national area.
Yeah.
They don't have the bandwidth. If anybody's filled out one of those online forms, like, hey,
what a great use of our time, right?
I know.
It's an automatic no thank you form.
I know, but you've done all the steps to make it officially no thanks.
Congratulations, we're not interested.
So, but the thing is, these brands are deeply interested if they're like, wait a minute, you can go to, you can get us in front of 30 events that are 300 to 500 people. That's 10 to 15,000 people. Okay, well, we're interested in that because so. At our core, we have the logistics piece, and then the sponsorship. The journey with you all, which I feel like is coming up on 3 years now, has been instrumental. It really has.
So are you guys representing mainly like runs, or are you in the full breadth of endurance events like triathlons and bike rides and I don't know what fit people do when they go to these events.
So we're full breadth. So, but sometimes we'll talk to like any given participant, like, oh, you do tries, and it's like, yeah, of course we do, but they represent such a smaller piece of the opportunity for business that the any given Sunday 5K is going to overwhelmingly do that. We also work with scholastic and collegiate events as well,
nice.
And that are like track and cross country in that space as well. But basically, if they have a component to it that involves event support, we'll step into that role.
That's brilliant. So you're supporting these events that maybe rightly or wrong, well, like kind of both right and wrongly think we don't appeal to big sponsors because we're local and we only have a couple hundred people. But they also have databases and so you help relieve that burden from them of logistics, planning, marketing, as well as connecting them to sponsors who are interested in these regional events if they're combined across broader regions or maybe the whole country, because that magnifies the size of the audience.
100%. Really, there's also just sort of, it's also turnkey. Let's take, like, for example, on a small level, like vendoring. Like we have one, this isn't a very big sponsor of ours, but they're going to come in this year right around $20,000. And all they want to do is set up a 10 by 10 tent at events. So they're going to get in, we negotiated it basically at a flat $400, except for a couple of extenuating circumstances on events. They get to set up at these areas for them to reach out to each, partner, like, whereas they can come to us each week. We're like, hey, here's your load in, load out. We have that turnkey. We're able to facilitate that. And originally, the interesting thing is, Chris, is these folks originally came in, off of a lead pipeline. They wanted to set up at one event. And I
Yeah.
started having conversation with last year. They did several thousand. This year they've stepped up their game considerably because we can deliver on that fulfillment and make it easy for them to the people we're dealing with then have to send that communication to their field teams and their field. So we just we can pepper in what they need there. They can
Mm.
forward that to their field teams. They know the kind of reception they're going to get. So
That's brilliant.
yeah, yeah.
That's brilliant. Like that's a really brilliant business model. I know we're here to geek out about sponsorship, but like a good business model is a good business model. It's fascinating to me because it's like, we've all done the sponsorship, the $500 booths, the $1,000 booths, whatever you consider to be that very low level sponsorship. For some people, $1,000 is a lot of money from a sponsorship perspective, but to the brand, it rarely is. So they treat you like a $500 partner, and you treat them like a $500 partner. But what you've done is elevated them to a $20,000 partner. And then that lets you pull out all the stops, do more with them. And then you can provide the fulfillment reports and all the stuff that the margin wouldn't be there to do at a smaller sponsorship necessarily.
The margin and also the conversation,
Yeah.
are doing a fulfillment report, whatever your property is, however you determine what a low level sponsorship is, doing a fulfillment report for them where it's almost like muddy. They're like, wait a minute, I don't even want to sit down and have a
Yeah.
conversation.
I just wanted to give out samples. Like, why am I
Yeah.
getting this 12-page report?
But when you get to someone where they're working with this and you're able to be like, here's what we can do. And then you can even start, um, leveraging in other areas.
Mm.
We have our events and we have other partners, like sponsor partners, that are only within our marketing emails.
Mm.
We have other partners that are only having product brought to our delivered to our office that we then distribute for them.
Yeah.
So finding out that they're, obviously there's the activation has to make sense for them.
Yeah.
And this obviously jumps through that part where you want to pull every lever available. And if one of those levers is philanthropic giving, like you're interested in this because of a cause and you really are just writing a charity, I'm not going to take my hand off that lever. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But a lot of these folks are it's bottleneck situations. How can you make their activations simple and streamlined for them and have conversations that don't, time suck them, that allow them to be like, okay, cool. I had that one conversation and now you're going to execute on me time and time again.
Yeah. Brilliant. So we're going to, in the closing thoughts, we're going to revisit this, but I know right now we have a lot of community events that consume our content. We also have brands that consume our content. So for those of you who are out there watching this thinking, I don't need to see the rest, I just want to hang out with Brendan and learn about how we can work together. Can you give everyone just name of a company where and the best place for them to find you if you want them to find you? Maybe you're too full with 700 events.
Yeah, no such thing. So our company's called Elite Feats, and that's feat of accomplishment, but plural. Everyone thinks it's feet on your feet, but elitefeats.com. We have where it's embedded with chat, and also you can reach out through that. You can reach out through our get started form there for both sponsorship opportunities and for event opportunities. And then of course I'm on LinkedIn.
You have a great LinkedIn presence. You provide a lot of value by way of sponsorship and activations. I really enjoy it.
Is that the pot calling the kettle black, Chris?
Hey, game recognizes game. All right. But seriously though, connect with Brendan on LinkedIn, and we're going to dig into all kinds of other stuff still. But you guys have it dialed in. So how many people are on your team? However you define team. So
there's 11 of us that do this full time. Another 4 people that work part time, and then there are maybe 70 or 80 per DM per event people.
Nice.
So, some of those people are remote. 10 of them are, including myself, are, here within the region and come into the office on a regular basis. One person full-time is remote out in California. A couple are remote offshore.
Nice.
And then the per diem are per event.
Nice.
Majority of that is going into logistics support. I do have an EA that's helping me a little bit with sponsorship, but one of the things that we're excited and this is probably a bigger conversation on like productivity, but like one of the things we're really excited about is and this goes into a lot of what from both the accelerator and then the calculator and then of course and the modules and of course the $1 million property has come into like bringing in someone that I can kind of coach and guide and bring in for sales and prospecting in a couple different areas.
Yeah. Dave, I won't say his last name, but we both likely know who I'm talking about. We'll call him Podcast Dave. Has done a great job at starting to implement support in prospecting and so on. And that that's when you start to multiply your effort in prospecting, like that's a wild ride. But all right. So you've got 11-ish people on the team, and how many are doing sponsorship? How many are in the prospecting, sales, negotiation game of sponsorship?
Just me.
Just you.
Yeah, just me. Yeah.
So people are hearing this. I know I've heard it all. Oh, we're too small. We're too small. He's got 1,000 people. No, Brendan is rocking the sponsorship for this.
Yeah.
And probably a whole lot of other stuff as well.
And I would say too, I am being like my productivity on sponsorship, like by productivity, if you measure that with, output of dollars from sponsors, is much higher nowadays than it was. But when I started this journey, like I was kind of like out there, it was like if you watch someone swimming and like they're splashing a lot, but they're not really moving forward. Yeah. That is how I would kind of explain like my initial like sponsorship. Yeah. Whereas now, I still have to, work to get there, but I feel like it's, much more efficient and much more productive.
Yeah. I love that. So let's talk tactics. How do you prospect? How do you find sponsors? Talk to me about your sales process.
So, it's interesting a lot. So I do reach outs and I do prospecting, not nearly as much as I should, but I leverage areas for inbound sponsorship all the time. So every part of our website's embedded with like, consider sponsoring or consider supporting it. So our email database. What do
they do? Do they download a gold, silver, bronze package when they click the consider sponsoring?
Great question. No, we have an intake form.
Yes.
Right. An intake form that's very simple. It's going to, it ends with, one of our audience data points that I love. 83% of our attendees said that they would change a purchase based upon sponsorship of one of our events.
Amazing.
So get ready to make an impact, right? That's what in their confirmation, and a member of our team will be in touch. But that's embedded in a bunch of places. So we're capturing leads that way. Yeah. And we're also then able to vet them that way.
Yeah.
And so we have that, and as whenever you're working in a region, you build your leads, you build the people that have worked with you, you work on bringing them around to higher amounts to delivering. Obviously you don't just send them a higher invoice like, hey, this year, this is the cost. You build value.
Yeah.
So those are sort of the two levers that I pull. And it was funny in the last $1 million property, Chris Norwood was talking about how it would be great to add in even experiential opportunities, because how many decision makers are attending our events that are like,
that was wild. I thought that was brilliant when I was like, man, of course. People are not, Coach Mark always says, people are more than just one thing. It's like, they're running, but they're also business owners and marketers and salespeople. Yeah. And it's like, sure, they're wearing their running hat, but they're still decision makers.
But I would venture, that at every event we do, there's either a direct decision maker or someone who knows a direct decision maker that could stroke a check of $20,000 to $30,000 at the minimum at that event. And so, even myself, where I consider that we have a real bullish game on getting people to get leads to us, which obviously is nice, and we can, I still think that we can do a better job there.
Yeah. That's brilliant. I love the where people go wrong is they add sponsorship to their website like it's an afterthought and like it's a passive purchase, right? Like, oh, just download this package and send us a check.
Yeah.
The problem with that approach is it makes it seem like an afterthought and a passive purchase, which nobody wants to do. I've never in my life gone to a website and been like, all right, I'll buy that car for 50 grand because they told me to. Right? It's like, So instead, you provide that same, hey, want to talk sponsorship, and then connect with us and let's have a conversation. That already puts you at the top 5% of sponsorship professionals because you're signaling, you understand that sponsorship is a long cycle B2B marketing investment when practiced in the way you're doing it, and not just a way to buy a couple of logos on a sign.
Exactly. And like using the car example, I think people confuse the fact that like hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in the last few years have gone in to build value into vehicles or whatever it is you're going to purchase.
Yeah.
That is, we are immersed in subliminally. The marketing mechanisms behind that have been thrown at us since we were children.
Everywhere.
And so you can go to that website and it can be like that. But we have not, as an individual property representative, have not done the same with ours.
Yeah.
And each property is unique. There are similarities between certain properties, but like to the media buyer, if you're lucky enough to have a media buyer scoping out your site, they have not been immersed in the value.
Yeah.
You haven't shown them the value. You're just saying, hey, I've hidden this from you. This is what we're charging.
Yeah. You have to have a strong brand and have done all this top of funnel work in order to just hand someone an invoice and get them to pay it.
Yeah.
When you go to book a flight, you don't have a discovery call with someone to find out exactly what kind of flight you would enjoy. You go to your preferred provider and you just buy it. And you can spend tens of thousands of dollars depending on where you're flying and what class you're flying in. But to your point, the vast majority of the properties out there don't have the benefit of being branded in that way. But they try to sell like they are, and it doesn't work. Because it doesn't work because it doesn't work that way.
And on the flip side to that, we get a lot of brands reaching out to us that are like, hey, I've got a great idea for your property. We'll give away this product. We'll set up at your event. I'm like, cool, what's your budget? And that's like crickets.
No, we're doing you a favor. We're just going to give you free product.
One of the biggest conversations I'll have with our stakeholders is they'll be like, yeah, someone donated a $150 product. And we now are going to raffle it off. And I'm like, so you're going to stop the event, talk about this, have everybody's attention on it, and give it away. And $150, if you go to sponsorship on your thing, isn't even your supporter level.
Yeah,
like it's not even on that, and you wouldn't offer this to your gold level.
Yeah,
I was like, they're not doing you a favor. You're doing them, even though they're giving you raffle items. Yeah.
You're ambushing your own event.
Yeah,
and you're lowering you're actually lowering the tangible value of your assets by doing that. Yeah. It's not good. Well, it's great for the sponsor.
It's great for if the sponsor's paying for it, I'm all for it. If they understand that, like, that surprise and delight is a fungible activation that you have to pay for, then I'm all for it. But it's not like you can't be giving that away for free. Yeah,
totally. So you're really driving people to have conversations, to like sit down and do proper discovery with them. What are your questions? Like, what are your favorite discovery questions, or question that gets people to give up the goods? The goods being the truth of what they're after, not necessarily the money.
The first thing you've got to do is just be like, tell me about it, and then tell me about what your goals are, or tell me about your brand, and then classic parroting, like, so like, say something and you just repeat the last few. You're listening.
Yeah.
But if someone says, like, if you feel like they haven't fully explained it, we're really interested in your property, but our consumer is really everyone. Your consumer is everyone. Just say it, like, kind of passively, and then they'll go, well, yeah, it's actually, and then you get to the bottom, like, okay, your consumer, like, I was talking to this one brand that was laundry detergent that was tabs instead of it. And like, anyone that does laundry, I'm like, really? Anyone that does laundry? Like, well, it's really great for like people that don't have a lot of space, or people that are older because it's not heavier. So I'm like, okay, you're looking for like people that are living in city apartments, or people that are like, we just went from everybody to like very subset part of everybody.
Yeah.
But my absolute favorite question, and I feel that, like, as you're trying to get them, as you're trying to get them to buy from you, you need to you need them to buy into who you are. And I absolutely love asking them, like, the question. It's great. Like, a lot of people get nervous about this. Like, so what's your budget?
Mm.
And they're like, well, send us a proposal of what you think you would do. And then I'm like, well, we have people spending, hundreds or a couple $1,000s on the property to people spending in the six figures. What would more accurately reflect your budget? And then I can put something together. And then they'll get to the meat and
Yeah.
potatoes. They might say, well, maybe next year we'll consider doing something, but like this year we realistically are looking at $20,000 to $40,000,
Yeah.
and then I can actually go to work, and it's not
Brilliant.
to just I can actually give them value in there. And I feel like
Yeah.
in that part of the conversation, the guard comes down
Yeah.
because they realize that I'm not going to just try to take them for as much money as they've got. I
Yeah.
want to actively fit what their budget is. And then I feel like when that guard comes down, I can be like, okay, we can go really heavy on just event. We could spend all that money on event marketing emails. We
Mm.
could spend all the money in post-race digital goodie bags. We could spend all that money in speaker fees and logo placement. Like which lever is more, and we get to like a more
So good.
like a more worthwhile and truthful conversation at
Yeah.
that point. But you can't start the conversation with that because they haven't let their
Yeah.
guard down. But
Yeah.
I typically get them to talk to himself about themselves. I get to the budget part,
Yeah.
and then I like to really go into a more heartfelt discovery because I have like numbers to work with, and I can start plugging in ideas and solutions to their goals.
I love that. That's brilliant. It's interesting to me when people think if I put all my values in the sponsorship package and give it to the person first, they'll show up ready to buy. But actually, what happens is you skyrocket sales resistance and they come in with their guard up.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this guy's just going to try to hammer on me and sell me a thing. Versus what you're doing at the beginning, like, hey, tell me about you. Tell me about your brand. What are you trying to accomplish? What a great way to start a conversation. Then tell me about your audience. Now they're going to say everybody.
Yeah.
So my sarcastic follow-up to that was always cool. So when was the last time you sold a product to a 4-year-old?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's not 4-year-olds. Amazing.
We'll cross that one off. Only
Yeah,
100 other
exactly.
only
It's
100
like,
other personas to go.
yeah, no one's audience is everybody.
Yeah.
And so then you go from the like, tell me about your audience to the tell me about your budget. You get the resistance, you overcome the resistance, and then you link it to, cool, we can spend it in any way you want. So you'll get maximum value. Like that's such a great way to structure a discovery and bookend with tell me about you and then tell me about your needs as they relate to budget.
Yeah.
Then you're not sending a package and wondering, are they going to say yes or no to this? Because you've made it for them.
At that point, and it gets to that conversation and they're serious about spending, they are going to buy.
Yeah.
Like without a doubt. They they are planning on spending that money this year and they've told you what it is.
Yeah.
And the question is whether or not they're going to want more than what you want to give. And you're not going to close 100% of them. But if you do it right, they will buy, not 10% of the time, but more like you'll get a 50% close rate.
Yeah, which is outstanding. So you've no doubt seen probably millions of activations at this stage in your career, in your life. No doubt you spent or spend much of your time participating in endurance events, as well as running them, as well as sponsoring them and all the things that you do. So I'm curious, you're an activation either that you've been part of through Elite Feats or just that you experienced. Hit us with like your favorite activation.
I mean, there's cool, like over the top stuff that's like fun to talk about. Like, where we're based in the New York City area, when we service the greater Northeast and Ohio to South Carolina, but in the New York City area on Long Island, there's restrictions for billboards, so you can't have marketing. Mm-hmm. So there's like buses that take people from Manhattan to the Hamptons and out east.
Yeah.
And we got them to sponsor one event and then treated that like a media buy. They gave us at cost wrapping. And then took that wrapping and sold it to a top tier sponsor.
Yeah.
Wrapped the bus with their logos on it, and so they get all these impressions and all this reach and everything like that. And that was fun and exciting. Sort of a one-off event that we do. But like I really enjoy seeing solutions like we're working with Uber. Uber bought this app called Postmates. It's like Uber Eats for them, and we're working with someone over at Uber we've been working on them now for over a year and a half on getting what they call first time eaters. And they had been doing it by giving us like $20 off for registrant. This is all digital. and we were including it in a post-race goodie bag, like, hey, use this code, get $20 off.
Mm.
And they were like, hey, could we start doing a code for $35 that does only if you're a first time eater, not if you're not just for anybody.
Right.
And I was like, sure. I was like, but we should still pair it with this original code. Anyway, we work this together. We send these out in the post race areas, and you've got this $1 billion company, and they are thrilled with the conversions. They look at it, they're like thrilled with it, and they're coming back with a good amount of money. They did an initial buy, which we're running through right now, but they're coming back with a good amount of money for the rest of the year. And this is completely digital. This is like just in a post-run email digital goodie bag. And so it's kind of like blasé in terms when you compare it to the bus wrap, but it isn't when you compare it to the actionable results. Like a bus wrap's like a billboard, right, man? Like who bought? I don't know. Like it was cool. It was splashy. It was fun. It was creative.
You can't follow it down the funnel to see how many sales were made.
But when something like this happens and I can hear the excitement and the person I'm working with's voice, in our meetings, and we're going over it because they can track that. That's really, for me, is that's the heart of like good spot. Like you said it, Chris, that like great sponsorship is that like cliche win-win-win. Like you got to solve the participants' problem. You've got to actually have something for your audience that they like. You've got to deliver on an ROI, however that's measured, for your sponsor. And it's oftentimes hard to measure it in sponsorship. And then you've got to deliver something to yourself. This isn't charity work for the company. This is, and so when that really mixes up, for me, I feel like, when I talk to sponsors and they're like, hey, what about doing like a mile marker sponsorship? I'm like, this isn't a golf outing where you sponsor a golf hole. Someone's running by this sweaty and they see a mile marker. They're not like, oh, Sotheby's sponsor.
I'll write that down for later.
Yeah. Like no one's if you want to say you're going to sponsor the music at a water station, and then we're talking about how that band or that music being played was brought to you by so-and-so. It's the conversation about it and the experiential opportunity that ties to a cool thing. But like just putting your logo on something out on the course, like I could take your money, but like that's just not good sponsorship. And so
boring for everybody.
Yeah. I love good ROI based activations.
Yeah, that's really good. When the sponsor knows what their cost of acquisition is, it means that they're comparing you to other acquisition channels if they're good at their job. And I'm willing to bet that this partner in particular is very good at their job.
Yes.
And so in sponsorship, you could do so much more than just a Facebook ad, right? There's all kinds of assets that you have access to when you're doing sponsorship to magnify the campaign. And so your chances are actually quite good at beating these other acquisition channels, which you did. And when you do that, it's measurable. And next thing you know, they increase their sponsorship, which is fantastic. So this is fascinating to me. Then I'm curious, you talked about 3 years working together, which, you get to an age where you start measuring relationships in years and decades. And I'm sad to say that I'm at that stage. So admitting that it's been 3 years makes me feel like I've earned this gray hair on my beard. So what was your biggest misconception or like thought about sponsorship, and how has that changed?
I mean, a lot of it, originally when I started the sponsorship journey, Chris, I had put together this super kludgy deck that was like basically like I do a fair amount of meta advertising. I've been doing that for years, because we act as an agency on behalf of our event partners.
Yeah.
And I looked at it as through impressions and reach and participants. I started working out this idea of like looking at our platform.
Yeah.
And then, I started moving away from that because I found that it was really hard to convey. And I came around to the accelerator, and everything eventually just came full circle. What I ended up coming back to was that all over again, and really, really putting together a platform wide deck. And one of my big takeaways when I got into the accelerator, like I knew at that time, like we definitely can support a 7-figure sponsor, multiple 7-figure category exclusive sponsors on our property, but it's not going to happen overnight. It takes years. And I didn't think I just thought it was going to happen quicker. You
Yeah.
know, I, I would say that, you know, you have to start somewhere. And the sponsorship journey, like anything that you're getting, it's a skill set, and anything that you start to master is not a linear.
Mm.
It's not like, oh, there's a parabolic, there's an exponential, there's a curve.
Yeah.
And I have never been more sure that I am at the point where, like, not only am I prepared to have a meaningful and worthwhile conversation with a seven-figure sponsor and deliver on that, but that our property, like that they are, without any like hubris or arrogance, that they will be lucky to work with us and
Yeah.
get those
Yeah.
dollars delivered to them.
Yeah. That's so one of the messages that I really want all of our clients and indeed everybody in the sponsorship, all properties, whether we work together or not, is that you are the prize. You've got the audience. Businesses can't exist without acquiring customers and clients. And every sponsorship property has other companies' target audience, right? That may like the amount of money spent on sponsorship and marketing in general in North America and the world is astronomical, uh, because of how critically important it is for companies to get more clients and customers all the time. So when you have access to an audience, you're the prize. And that meant it doesn't mean you have to be arrogant. It doesn't mean that you have to treat people badly, but you have to know what you have. That here's a free thing for a raffle. That is a perfect example of a property that doesn't realize how valuable their audience is, and that they could have commanded hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of dollars for that, or
Yeah.
used those types of assets to boost their title sponsorship to 2-3x what they're charging. So yeah, what a great mental shift. And
Yeah.
And in your case, it's obviously true. So
And
yeah,
there's nuances to that too, Chris. Like, obviously, I understanding your audience in minutia levels,
yeah,
not because every sponsor will want the minutia levels, but because you need to have all the tools in your toolkit to talk
yeah,
about your audience.
yeah,
You know, some sponsors really will be like, you're in our region, I don't need your personas.
yeah,
Other sponsors are going to be very, very much, all right, sounds like but 23% of your audience is going to be the persona we want,
yeah,
and you need to be able to know the
yeah,
difference. So that was another big illumination through going through the
yeah.
accelerator and the process.
That's wild. Yeah, it's the importance of audience, I think, is commonly missed, and usually is the missing link in sponsorship in general for people. So you alluded to this, which is I call it the regression to the mean, where you have spikes and you have dips, but as long as the mean is going up over time, you're growing. And you sort of mentioned the same thing, where it's like you're having these successes and failures, the ups and downs as you're growing your sponsorship properties, your sponsorship revenue. You thought it would be faster, you thought it'd be quicker, you thought it would be a slam dunk. And so with that, you go through a lot of pain, agony, staring into the abyss. So how do you handle the mental side of either what you mentioned there, or just the rejection, something not working out the way you wanted? Like, what is the mental game for you?
So, luckily I've been in sales for a very long time, and the rejection part of it, you do need to remind yourself that there is almost unlimited leads out there.
Yeah.
And you can get laser focused when you're talking to one that you know is really great.
Mm.
You know that your property is a good fit for them, but they don't see it.
Yeah.
And so it can feel like that's
Yeah.
the end. And that's a really like claustrophobic situation to be in. You do need to, have that sort of next mentality. But outside of that, one piece of good advice, just in general in growing a business, is specifically if you're seeing wins and you're seeing successes, it is parabolic. And so at first you'll be like, oh, cool, I basically doubled sponsorship. But if for whatever your property's value is,
Yeah.
if that means you went from 10,000 to 20,000 or 100,000 to 200,000, whatever it may be, or a million to 2 million, those are, huge jumps.
Mm-hmm.
For the subsequent year, you might only grow by 10%.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to talk about things in amounts of dollars. If you
Yeah.
in that situation, like you took, like, let's just say you went from 1 year, went from 50 to 100,000. Oh, I doubled. But the next year you go from 100,000 to 120,000. I only grew by 20%. That
Yeah.
in itself is a psychological head, like, but
Yeah.
you took 20 grand
except
more. You took,
except it's like
yeah,
40% growth from year one because
yeah,
interest compounds. Like it's
yeah,
actually amazing.
yeah. And residuals and annual contracts. So yeah, that's a big part of it. That you need to think about it in those ways. Um, and I do have a luxury with the way our company is set up, where sponsorship isn't my sole
Mm,
responsibility, but nonetheless, like I'm a competitive person, in any area that I get into. And you know, I just remind myself at the heart of it that like what I have is valuable
mm,
and that
mm-hmm.
I'm solving businesses problems,
Yeah.
and you just can't take it personally.
Mm,
You can't take it personally.
mm,
Um, you just got to keep after it. And sometimes that might mean just taking a break from it for a day
yeah.
or shaking it off and hitting the reset. Specifically after, a big no or something like that.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
I stress eat, so that helps too.
Yeah. You stress eat, but you clearly outrun it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so there are two types of people in this world: those who work in sales and those who haven't realized they work in sales.
Yeah.
And we all work in sales. And yeah, that is such good advice. Like, don't take it personally. If you remember the name of the people who have rejected you, you are not talking to enough people.
Yeah.
Like, prospect at a volume that it's like, sorry, who said no? Whatever. Right. Like,
Yeah.
you have something of value. Just always be opening new relationships, and don't take it personal.
And just remember, like, we have a we have a laundry detergent sponsor. We've had multiple laundry detergent sponsors. Like, it's not something you would think is on brand for like the endurance-based industry. There
Yeah.
is like whatever your property is, whoever you think is perfect, there are hundreds you're
Yeah.
not thinking of that if you were
Yeah.
talking to a decision maker, they'd be like, oh yeah, you actually are perfect for us.
Yeah.
Like hundreds,
Yeah.
if not thousands. Yeah.
So what's your biggest win or breakthrough that you can point to over the last year ish, whether it's sponsorship, mindset, business growth? Like, what's a really cool thing you want to share with the world?
So when we started with the accelerator, we had one sponsor coming in at $12,000. This
Mm.
last year, they signed on for $120,000. We didn't just have one sponsor at the time, but they
Yeah,
came in
yeah.
at that.
So
That
you
was a
grew a sponsor from
uh,
12K to
so-
120K.
that was a big deal.
Yeah.
And they signed a 3-year multi-year. So that also like that's
Yeah.
like bam, bam, bam.
Yeah. So 3-year multi-year means like pretty significant reduction in work to renew and fill the gap. That's one. Two, for those of you out there who are business owners and growing your business, when you talk about value of the business, if you're considering sale or loans or whatever it is you're planning on doing with your business, that's hugely valuable. Plus, $120,000 is objectively better than $12,000.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It was a step. We took it from like 12 to 20 and 20 to 25 and then 25 to 120. So it was a big step on that last one. And that comes with
Huge.
there's some activations, there's some hard cost activations in that, but the hard cost activations in that all serve us and serve our agenda, which is great.
Yeah.
And you know, this year we brought in it's over $300,000 in sponsorship, which
That's
for
great.
our organization is a considerable amount.
Yeah.
And had another multi-year come in at 45 off of just one event that's in our property that with that bus wrap thing that we did.
Yeah.
And so those are big wins. I would say another very big win. We rolled out. It's called the Goodwill Race Series, and within the Goodwill Race Series, there's sub series for like first responders, veterans, Crush Cancer Series, Aces for Autism, Feed the Hungry. All these races that are then raising funds for that now fall
Mm.
under this series.
Mm.
And the idea is we just rolled it out. We haven't seen any actual wins on sponsorship for it yet, but we're now able to appeal to both philanthropic giving and sort of
Nice.
turnkey series sponsorship. So instead of our entire platform, we can go to a business who maybe they are a veteran supporting business, or maybe they're a business that the CEO's son has autism and they have a goal to put funds into autism awareness events. But we're able to now pull both philanthropic and turnkey activations across sort of a series wide, and then come up with custom messaging.
Mm-hmm.
And businesses want to message, hey, we're here to support pediatric cancer events. So the Goodwill Race series and the dozen or so sub-series within it that are based upon all these different all the IP and assets that we had to go into it. That's a win that we're really excited about and looking to springboard into the future for better sponsorship opportunities.
It's interesting. We're interviewing. I feel like we're in growth mode, and so I feel like I spend most of my life interviewing people to join the team. And someone I was speaking to before speaking to you, he said to me, what I love about the work you guys do at the Sponsorship Collective is that very few of your clients, sponsorship is their thing. Sponsorship is the tool to achieve something great. And I was like, 100%, this is how we as a company impact the world. And that's how I think about it. And so I asked you to share wins, and you shared a cash win, which, as any salesperson, you should be proud of that. And then you shared like a impact win on the world. And this is what's so fascinating to me about sponsorship, as opposed to, say, ad sales. Nothing wrong with our ad sales colleagues, but it's we're driven by the numbers, we're driven by revenue, we're driven by marketing, we're driven by experiential activations, and then also the impact that we're having in our communities. And it's a very strange blend of things that make up our particular piece of the world in what I'll call the sponsorship industry. So what is something that you wish everyone out there who's I want to get some sponsorship would stop doing immediately, and what they should do instead?
I think that you can't treat, first off, you have to know your value. You have to know that you have value. If you don't know you have value, you're kind of going to the table in a needy position. And maybe you need sponsorship. Maybe if we don't get sponsorship, it's fine to say, it's fine to acknowledge that you need that revenue. But you really need to know your value and have that, that you're going there that you are solving their marketing problems, that you are the solution, and that you're going there to have a conversation about a solution. And if it's overshadowed with if you have blinders on because you can only think about the funds you need, and you've already gotten to the point where we're a good fit, give us your money.
Yeah.
You aren't taking them along that journey, and you got to go into it. And that's more maybe me talking to my slightly younger self.
Yeah.
But that piece right there, and just sponsorship. You talked about it, Chris. All these, the Venn diagram of everything where sponsorship sits. A ton of information has come out about how sponsorship is the best type of marketing, right? It really is the best bang for your buck. There's so much that's come out about how powerful it is.
Yeah.
Be aware that like I said earlier on, if they're saying we want to write a check for corporate giving, okay, cool, thanks. Yes, we are a charity.
Yep,
great.
I'll take it.
Yeah. But and then after that check's written, be like, you know what? We'd love to have a conversation with you about your marketing. Get the check in hand, cash or card, great. And then afterwards, be like, hey, can we have a meeting with you about marketing?
Yeah.
And then talk to the marketing people and do something for free for them that year. Be like, hey, our cost for this is $800. Off the shelf, it would be like a $10,000 activation, but the hard cost, we're going to do it for free this year and get a marketing conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're not corporate giving. That's the forgotten about piece. Yeah. If you took marketing's this, and then a sliver is corporate giving for budgets. You got to know your value, go to it as a solution solver, and realize that you offer, when done right, the best ad spend that they will make that year.
Beautiful. Beautifully said. So one more time, where can people find out about you, and who do you want to hear from, if anybody?
Well, I'd love to speak to someone we're Elite Feats right here. And elitefeats.com. Like I said, there's a couple different ways to reach out to us there. Also, feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. But I would love to hear from a auto, a bank, and or an insurance company, if any of you, right? But those are the big ones.
Amazing.
But really, we have partners, you know, from all over the place. If you
Yeah.
need a field team to distribute your goods at scale, we can do that. We provide a field team that can do that. If you're looking for actionable digital surprise and delight,
Mm.
native advertising, brand messaging, our events have announcers. Brand messaging, I feel like, is one of the most underutilized but so impactful areas to directly speak, like literally, to
Yeah.
your audience.
Yeah.
We do all of this at scale, and would love to have a conversation with anybody interested in the greater Northeast market, and really specifically the New York City area DMA.
Beautiful. Brendan, always a pleasure. I appreciate hanging out today.
Yeah, of course. Good talking to you, Chris.
Likewise.